The night has come, it's cold and losing my control. Your light is gone, and lonely darkness fill my soul. I wish that you could save me from my isolation. It's way too complicated. Let's stop this conversation. Let's stop this conversation. We got no relation.
Good evening, and if you're just tuning in, you're listening to or watching live UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio Network, and this is the Angel Rock. You can listen to us on 105.3 in the Gulf Coast in the U.S. and Mississippi, and 107.7 FM out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, and that's actually where we are broadcasting out of, but we're kind of global all over, as you'll find out in a few minutes. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. A little bit about myself. I am a Canadian psychic medium, a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor. I'm also a registered nurse. I'm well versed in near-death experiences, having had one as a toddler myself, and I've studied them professionally and personally for over 40 years. Now, Julie's not here yet, so I'll say it. She's one of my mentors, but I'm a budding animal communicator, and I'm extremely well versed in the paranormal. I always say I didn't go looking for it, it found me. And we've shared our story on the Travel Channel's Paranormal Survivor. It's season 4. Episode 9. You can find it on Netflix, on YouTube. And if you're a follower of UPRN, you're going to see a familiar face in that episode. I did not know her at the time, but Michelle DeRoche, who is our station manager, and she has Beyond the Outer Realm on Tuesdays, as well as the Outer Realm Wednesdays and Thursday nights, is in that episode. So what a small world, let me tell you. So you can find that anywhere if you want to take a look at that. It'd be nice. Also, I want to thank Carnation. Carnation sponsors this show and all the shows on Mondays here. It's Carnation Monday. So regardless of where you are in the world, Carnation is global. If you see a product that you like, please support them because they bring this great programming to you. There's numerous shows that stream multiple shows actually daily live 7 days a week on this network. And when we're not streaming live, the archive server kicks in and pick shows from the last 25 plus years. So we actually are streaming live 24 hours a day, or 24 hours a day. We do have a website. It's www.uprntalkradio.com. You can also listen over there. The website is getting a big overhaul, and I hear that we may even be having a merch store coming. So check that out for sure. I always say, though, actually, I'll start over with that. This network does broadcast to every country in the world, but 80 to 85% of our audience is audio only. So I'm almost wondering, we haven't got anybody popping in the chat yet. This is weird. I hope we are live. We'll have to see if people are a little behind tonight. You never know. I know school's starting all over, especially in North America here. Anyways, where was I? So we do stream, but if you're listening live and you're thinking, why can't I see the comments? Why can't I join in? I always say you have to see us to join in the conversation. So I'm going to quickly rattle off the names of some of the places you can go to join the conversation. We are on Facebook under my profile, which is Lorilei Potvin, my LinkedIn, which is Lorilei Potvin. We are all there. We go. I was beginning to think we weren't live. You can go to my YouTube channel, which is the Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin. For the network, we are on UPRN's Facebook page, which is UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio Network. Same name on our main YouTube channel. We are on Twitch under the same name. I'm borrowing the owner's network or his Rumble channel. He lets me, of course. I didn't just sneak in there. So we are on Rumble under Jojo or Joe Montaldo. So you can watch us on there. We're also on the Angel Rock on Instagram. Your comments aren't in the same spot. So I pop back and forth to have you join in the conversation. Also, what do I want to tell you guys? I got to make sure I cover everything here. If you want to watch us on TV, the network does have a TV channel. It's on Roku. So you go to the channel store and you're going to go to the search button at the top and type in UFO space P as in paranormal. There's a drop down list and you're looking for the third or fourth one down. It's UFO space paranormal United Public Radio. And that's how you can watch us. And I'll tell you now and I'll tell you at the end. Stay tuned afterwards too, because Preston Dennett and Dolly Saffron are coming up with the light gate right after. And I'll remind you towards the end of the show. So I want to read this guest. A lot of you may not be familiar with him. Some of you that have been around for a while have, but he's a fantastic guest. As soon as I saw your name, Steve, I went, oh, yes, I have to have him back on. Give me a sec. I got to grab my glasses here. So Steve Burgess is one of the world's leading hypnotherapists and a specialist in past life regression. He has completed many thousands of past life regression sessions, helping his clients with a wide range of issues, including phobias and anxieties, depression, lack of confidence, weight issues, addictions. I'm trying to find also, I want to grab something else here. Give me 1 second as I'm reading this. Where are we? There we go. I want to make sure I got to go to another page. Never mind. I'll start over again. Sorry. Lack of confidence, weight issues, addictions, physical illness, sexual problems, and performance anxiety. Most of his work involves using hypnosis to regress people back to the emotional root causes of their problems, often back into previous lifetimes. His YouTube channel, and he does have a good YouTube channel, I checked it out before, is called Hypno for All, and I'll spell it for you. It's H as in Henry, Y, P as in Peter, N as in Norman, O as in Oscar, then number 4, and then A, L, L as in lion or Lionel, but it's all one word, and it features free hypnotherapy recordings. He is in high demand as a hypnotherapy trainer, and his work has been featured on television, national radio, and numerous publications. And I believe Steve was on, it was probably almost 4 years ago for his previous book, because he is an author too. So we're going to be talking about, and I'm really excited about this, his new book, and it's called The Adventures of a Hypnotherapist. Was I Under? Welcome, Steve.
Thanks, Lorilei. That's a wonderful intro. Thank you. It's great to be back.
Well, you got to thank Gavin. Gavin sends me, I never get to meet the guests usually until they come on, and I've emailed with them, and he's never, knock on wood, he's never sent me a bad guest. I've been doing this for many years, and you're one of those people. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I'm going to just say hi to everybody quickly. People are slow tonight. I was beginning to think, what's going on? Usually people file in right away, but it looks like just YouTube. I don't know what's going on with Facebook tonight, but we've got Contessa Martin. She says, hi, Lorilei and Steve. We got Mish. I always love to nicely tease Mish. Mish is over in Australia, so I always say she's over in the future because it's Tuesday morning over there already. She says good day. Got Michelle Wilfong, and I let you. Sometimes we're on TikTok, sometimes we're not. They like to penalize me, as I was telling you before we went live, because I have to use a tool to get the necessities to work with StreamYard, and so we're blocked. I think probably for Thursday as well. So, but Michelle Wilfong's my mod over there, and she's incredible. She does such a good job. She also lives in a haunted apartment and has a TikTok channel under the same name, My Haunted Apartment. So please check her out. She's picked up some pretty crazy stuff in her apartment. Everybody's just saying hi to each other. Oh, Michelle, Miss, you're still in bed? Wow. Well, enjoy. So, Steve, I got to ask you, and it's been a while. I remembered your name. I remembered I had such a great time the last time I interviewed you. And I may have asked you this, but I'm going to ask you again. What got you involved with hypnotherapy?
It was quite by accident. I would honestly like to say that it was divinely inspired or something like that, but it was really quite by accident. I was a director of a publishing company, and it went bust and took some of my money with it. So I had to do something pretty quickly. And my father had been playing with hypnotherapy for a few years. And basically what had happened is he's a scientist by profession, and he tried to stop smoking and couldn't stop smoking. For years, nothing would work. And eventually somebody said, go and see a hypnotherapist. And my dad went to see a hypnotherapist, and this chap laid him in a comfortable chair, asked him to close his eyes, relaxed him down, gave him some what we call post-hypnotic suggestions about letting go of his cigarette habit. And my dad didn't want to smoke anymore. And that did not make sense. It just didn't make sense to his scientific brain. You know, why did this work? So he started to read up about hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and the more he read, the more fascinated he became. So then he went and trained to be a hypnotherapist, and he started practicing privately from home, just as a hobby, really, just as a hobby, helping family and friends and people who were referred to him by friends. And so he said to me, well, why don't you look at being a hypnotherapist? So, okay, well, I'll give it a go. I went and got trained. Then I retrained with somebody who was an even better trainer. And I was very lucky, really, Lorilei, because I think I'm a natural therapist. You know, there are different. Everybody can be natural at something. Like you've got natural sports people, natural musicians, natural drivers, whatever, natural entertainers. I think I'm a natural therapist, so it just felt like I was coming home to something. Now, whether, and I've done quite a bit of past life work on myself, but I don't think I've ever been back into a past life where I was a healer. But I get a sense that there's a possibility that was somewhere in the past. So I'm sort of reliving something that I've already experienced, I think, in a past life.
Well, I wouldn't doubt it, right? Because when I started this path later in life, like I was always very intuitive, didn't realize, looking back now, I've had this going on my whole life around me. And I kept getting things coming up, right, as I examined this, like oracle cards, got a certified angel card reading course and all this stuff. And every time I do a reading for myself, I don't anymore, but back in the day, you'd always say, you're a healer. You're a healer. You're a healer. Well, as a nurse, yes, I guess, but I hurt my back at that time too. And I wasn't able to go back to it. And I kept saying, why is it saying I'm a healer? But you know what? Now that I'll see where I am today. I've realized that practically, now I could be wrong about this, but I think anything that somebody does in service to others is a form of healing. So if you're dealing with somebody, in my mind, and you've had an interaction that hopefully they feel a little bit better, but you haven't left them any worse. Most people, I think if you're kind and you go forward with love in your heart, you usually make them feel a little bit better. That's healing, right? Artwork, people enjoying sports, right? Nobody would ever think as, say, a famous basketball player that you're a healer. No, but by you going to work and you doing your ultimate best on the course, and people that go there, they get to go with friends, their mood is uplifted. In a way, your art form or your sports is kind of a healing in a way. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've never thought of it in those terms, and that does make sense because it's very good. I mean, I suppose most of us, a lot of the time, are in a, I don't know, just in an average state. We tend to sort of get through life and we mull through life and we don't really live it as joyfully as we perhaps could do. And I mean, obviously, there are also, I mean, if you ever listen to Abraham Hicks and Jerry Hicks and they're constantly talking about raising our vibrations to a higher plane, to a higher disc or something, to get out of the negative energy that we tend to be in a lot. And this idea that if you're doing something which feeds your soul, if you're doing something which makes you happy, you are raising your vibrations. And by raising your vibrations, then you are energetically connected with higher things. And then getting out of that low mood, which is then getting away from being down and being just normal, really. So anything we can do, I think, I mean, my way of my healing very often, apart from being with my beautiful fiance, but my healing is playing classical music, and that absolutely, I just, that raises my vibrations every single time. So, yeah, I think anything we can do to raise our energies, and because everything is connected, certainly we raise our energies, then the collective is raised as well. And that has to be good from the perspective of humankind.
I have to agree with you because I used to hate to hear that term because we had a really, I keep saying it. One of these days I'm actually going to sit down. I've got the outlines, fill in the stories. I'm writing 3 books. And the one with our haunting that we went through, if I hadn't have been there, I don't think I would have believed it. I documented some of the things that was so insane. It was very evil, very negative, including my partner. He was thrown 15 feet across the kitchen, arm all cut up. He And he's still skeptic to this day. He didn't even tell me about it. I seen when he woke up in the morning, his elbow was all cut up. And I said, what happened? And he said, well, I got up to make something to eat and I was sitting in front of the fridge. It was about 3 a.m. I was looking for the mustard. So I bent down and he said, next thing I knew, I was thrown across the kitchen. And he said, no, I didn't witness this, but I do believe him. He said, so I couldn't figure out what happened. Like, did I get a jolt? Did I get a shock? Whatever it was. And then he said, the funny thing behind me, and I did not see it go with me, the mustard was behind me when I turned around. But what did he do? He went and grabbed his voltmeter and was checking to make sure there was no shocks in the fridge. But my whole point is that we kept hearing, you got to raise your vibration. You got to raise your vibration. And it was really dark and negative. But when you start realizing, like you said, everything's connected, and you break it all down to energy, including, I think, our thoughts, our words, and our emotions are some of the most powerful forms of energy. And we've never been taught as human beings to understand that. And, then you get into the work that you're doing with hypnotherapy. Why do you think it works? I think I know why, but I'd love to hear it out of your mouth. Why do you think? Because that's a profound change from somebody that's been a smoker for years, one session, and they don't want to smoke anymore.
Yeah. Well, there's two things here, Lorilei. I mean, first of all, hypnotherapy and regression. So they are both two sides of a coin. Now, hypnotherapy uses the subconscious mind. So basically, when we go into trance, when we go into an inner state, we start to, if you like, let go to some degree of the conscious mind. That softens, and it allows our subconscious mind to come through. Now, the mind is like an iceberg. The tip of the iceberg above the waves is the conscious thinking mind. And the vast bulk of the iceberg beneath the waves is the 99.9% of the mind that we don't overtly use on a day-to-day basis. So,
but it's always on. It's always on, right?
It never stops. Our subconscious is always open. We're always open to suggestion. And if you ever watch somebody like Derren Brown, the great English sort of, I don't know.
My partner was into him for a long, long time. Yes.
Absolutely,
but please explain for the rest, because they may not know who he is.
Well, Derren Brown is an unusual Englishman, and he calls himself a magician, a manipulator, a hypnotist, and he has some amazing TV shows and his stage shows as well. But he sort of proves that the subconscious is just open all the time. By on his stage show, for example, behind him up on stage, there'll be different words or different numbers that you don't notice when you're watching him, but they all go into the subconscious. And by the end of the evening, you realize that those words or those numbers are coming through in his act in some way, and you haven't spotted it. And the man is, I think, just one of the few people on earth who I call a genius. So I would honestly say your listeners would love to watch him. There's quite a bit of him on YouTube, and it's Derren, Derren.
I can tell you, my partner, Dal, tried one of his techniques, and he even couldn't believe that it worked. He went, of all places, to the bear store, and he walked in, and it was something Derren had done. And I think he stated, if I remember correctly, this was quite a few years ago, he stated that he wanted one beer, but somehow influenced them. He didn't steal anything, but he knocked twice.
Yes.
And the person brought out 6 beers and handed to them. People are going, how did you do that? Like, how did you do that? And he's pretty powerful energetically too, but he didn't swindle the girl. He didn't steal from her. He just mimicked what Derren. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm telling you. I wasn't there to see it, but he came home and he was all excited because it worked.
Yes. Well, he showed that in one of his early TV shows where he was at I think a greyhound evening, greyhound racing or horse racing, something like that.
I remember that one. I saw that one.
And he would bet on a greyhound, and if it lost, he would then go to the betting place to pick up his winnings. But he hadn't won anything. But as he went to the window and he gave the teller his slip, and he banged on the counter and said something like, "That's the donkey for me," or something like that. Yep. And she paid him out as if he'd won.
That's what something like what Dell tried. That was something to that. I'll have to ask him again about the story, but yeah, it was amazing. And she gave it to him, and she was astounded afterwards that she had actually done that.
Yeah. So it is a genius, and so many things. I mean, we can spend the whole evening discussing.
Oh, we want to talk about your book.
But anyway, yeah. But no, so the subconscious mind is the powerhouse of the mind, and it's the 99% of the mind that we don't overtly use on a day-to-day basis. So this is one reason why hypnotherapy is so powerful. We're using the powerhouse of the mind. It's the all-knowing, all-wise part of the mind. I mean, when you think about it, just think what we've achieved as human beings, just using the tip of the iceberg, the less than 1% of the mind, the conscious mind. But what can we achieve using the all-knowing, all-wise part of the mind? It's almost unstoppable. My belief, though, I actually go even further than this, because obviously I started out as a bulk standard hypnotherapist. As I've done more and more work over the years and become more and more spiritual, I nowadays believe that we all have a higher self. And I believe that the subconscious mind either is our higher self or is intimately connected to it. So when we're working in hypnotherapy, we're working with the higher part of our minds and our intellectual, our intelligence, you could say. So that's hypnotherapy, and hypnotherapy can be very powerful. Standard hypnotherapy is about taking the client into trance, into a gentle inner state, often characterized by relaxation, and then using post-hypnotic suggestions. So from this time on, if somebody comes in with a phobia, from this time on, you'll notice that you're becoming less and less scared of white mice. From this time on, you'll find that white mice no longer bother you. Things like that. You're giving suggestions and doing visualizations. Now, that can be very powerful, but for me, it's not deep enough. And so my work almost exclusively is about using regression. And what is regression? Well, regression means going back into the past to dig out the roots of an issue. And when you dig out the roots, the issue never comes back. So the regression model is that all of our issues as human beings come from locked in feelings and emotions from past traumas. And those traumas can take place in the past in any one of three areas. In this life, and we all have baggage from this life, from our past lifetimes, and from our ancestors' lives. So we can inherit trauma from our ancestors, our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, etc., etc. So the whole concept of regression is that if a client has an issue, if any of us have an issue, whether it's a phobia or a lack of confidence or whatever it is, that issue is like a weed that's growing up out of the ground. And what a lot of therapists do, they try to chop the weed down. And that can be very successful. Undoubtedly, it can be very successful. But what sometimes happens is if you haven't dug the roots out, the weed can grow back, or it will grow out in a different way. So as an example, for example, depression. Now, standard hypnotherapy shouldn't be used with depression, because if you're just giving somebody who's depressed suggestions about feeling better, and if it doesn't work, they're going to feel worse. So it may be, if you're just giving the client with depression suggestions about feeling better, it may help them to feel better, like you're chopping the weed down. And they start to feel a lot better. But 3 months later, they start to get skin problems, because the roots of the depression, which are locked in anger, depression is always caused by locked in anger, the roots have come out in a different way. They've gone underground and come out in the form of skin problems. And skin problems are also caused by locked in anger. So this, for me, is why regression is so
my
important.
book I use in all my practices, my healing work, because I agree 100%, right? And it's based a bit on the medical model, but also Eastern medicine, because you are absolutely 100% correct. When it's energy, break it right down to energy. You don't get to the root and beneath it, right? It sits there, it festers, and maybe you're chopping it down. The human body is a magnificent machine, including the mind. It'll just find a way around it and come up in a different way.
Exactly. And all physical issues have emotional causes.
Agreed.
So this is where modern medicine goes completely wrong. It's all about giving somebody a tablet. And of course, there's nothing wrong with giving people a tablet. It can help. But all physical issues have emotional causes. And so much of my work nowadays is working on physical problems, whether it's pain, whether it's cancer, whether it's asthma, and I talk about this in the book, of course. Some of the extraordinary stories my clients have had.
I got lots of questions, boy. Let me say hi to just a few people that are here. We've got Vector84, Lisa Martinello, Clinton Smith. We've got Z-Sun Dragon. I always joke and say I call him by his muggle name, Kevin. And I will give a little plug for last week's show, because Kevin or Z-Sun Dragon was very kind to send me a clip, because we got an EVP during last week's show, which is not unusual during my show. And I always forget. I don't know why I always forget to mention Thursday night show thing at the is Beneath the Hollow Moon, and it's with Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, who has Spirit Switchboard here on Fridays, 6 p.m. Eastern. I don't think we've decided on our topic yet, but you guys always know it's going to be a surprise. I have a whole file from Carrie Lynn and I doing a show together. You would not believe the EVPs that have come through. They don't usually on the Angel Rock, but we had somebody breathing during the show, I guess, last week. Yeah, actually, let's talk about that, since I mentioned that. Now that I think of it, I was going to ask you something else, but so you mentioned some things in this book about, it's basically some of the clients you've come across and really unusual, intriguing experiences, right? So you've come across people with attachments, right? With spiritual attachments.
Yeah. What I wanted to, just first of all, what I wanted to do with the book was, my previous book was The Power of Past Life Regression. It was all about past life regression cases and how it had helped my clients.
I was going to ask you that anyway, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Their experiences in past lifetimes and in the sessions, and how they relived them and how they got better. This time I wanted to give it a broader spectrum. I wanted to make it funny and quirky, so there's a lot of fun, there's a lot of humor in there, but there's a lot of shocking things as well. So
I know. I was reading some of this stuff. I was like, wow, even I haven't heard of this stuf before.
Yeah, so I mean, hypnosurgery, doing hypnosurgery.
That's what I was going to ask you about.
Alien abduction regressions, working with clients who have extraterrestrial contact experiences, spirit release stuff. So, and also wanting to include in the book not just past life stories, but ancestral trauma stories. So clients' traumas they've inherited from ancestors. So I wanted to give it a much bigger picture this time. And so I've tried to include, and some shocking stuff, like clients who have had horrific experience when they've been sexually abused as children, and how regression and therapy can help with that. So, I've tried to give it a much wider brief, and people are saying lovely things about it. I'm really happy. And I've tried to make it as funny as I can. And one of the reviewers said it was tea-spittingly funny, which is a wonderful English phrase, I think. But spirit release and spirit attachment. So how can I preface this? Not everybody who I come across in therapy has spirit attachments. Right. Far from it. I mean, it's just not that at all. However, it happens more frequently than I think people would ever realize it's likely to happen. So maybe every week or two, I'm certainly working with a client at some point every week or two who has spirit attachments, and we send them on, we move them on in most cases. So I was working with a client.
Why would people have a spirit attachment in your experience? Why do you think people do, especially people that may not be aware of it?
There can be different reasons. Sometimes if you've got a low mood and you can be just in a bad mood, I mean, you can be walking past a cemetery and there's a spook hanging around there and it just connects to you. Because what they're looking for generally are people in low moods, low vibrations. It's almost as if your energy is spiky and they can hook into you. And so that's one reason.
Substance abusers, right, would be another.
Substance abusers, people in hospital. You go into hospital, there are dead people everywhere.
I used to work in one. I think that's where that thing came from. That was at my house. I think it followed me because I worked at the bedside, especially towards the end when I hurt my back. I had worked in one of the most dangerous parts of my city. There was a lot of low vibrational energy in the way of substance abusers. Many people lost their lives that were unalived, innocent victims, a lot of crime. And I don't know if somebody had an attachment when they passed away and they said, that looks interesting. I think I'll follow that home.
Yeah. But they can even come through from past lives, and they can come through from ancestors' lives. So even that can come. I had a client yesterday in Oslo, and we've been working to help her with breast cancer over the last few years, and we've done lots of regression work to the emotional causes, and she's done a lot of different therapies, and she now no longer has breast cancer. So I'm not claiming to cure breast cancer, obviously not. But, if you're working with cancer, do all different things, and there's a chance you can beat it.
Yeah, but science is catching up with this, and this is through no judgment to anybody out there at all. But they are really showing, especially with breast cancer, and cancers, is a real emotional issue to it, like hanging on to. And again, I love that you brought up that many of these things like depression and whatever, the root cause goes down to anger, right? A lot of it breaks down to fear as well, but especially with anger, that's repressed anger, or a lot of things I have seen with the research out there, that they're starting to look at that now. So that would make sense why it may work with the work you're doing, Steve.
Well, when we do regression, we're working to release one or more of the 5 root negative emotions, the 5 root negative emotions, root ROOT, which are anger, sadness, fear, anxiety, and guilt. Those are the 5 root negative emotions. And all of my clients have either got one or more of those at the heart of their issues. Cancer is quite complicated. There's often several different ones. But working with her yesterday, this client in Oslo, and she went into an ancestor's past life. Now, she's Jewish and from Norway. And in the Second World War, the Norwegians had a hell of a bad time. The Nazis invaded and caused mayhem, obviously. Many of the Jews were shipped off to concentration camps. And that was happening with several of her ancestors. And there was such bad energy for that ancestor as this was happening that for some reason an attachment, a spirit connected to him when things were so dark in the middle of the war, connected to him. But when he was shipped off to Auschwitz or killed in the concentration camp, this entity, this spirit, was hanging around and continued coming through the ancestors that were around him, his children, until it had come through into my client's life. Which is very unusual, but these things are there more than I think people give them credit for. And
well, they are. And the thing is, right, and because especially I find over in majorly developed countries, and I'm happy that the paranormal is brought more widely open into the public with TV, but it's grossly blown out of proportion in many instances. But again, we're never taught to look at these things, right? Now, the question that is really going through my mind is, why would we carry ancestral issues that you're coming across with the hypnotherapy that you're doing? Like, why, you know what I mean? Like, I've never asked for myself, why me? But if you're carrying that through the ancestral line, like, why would it eventually come out and say, we'll use me, for example, and I do have ancestral stuff going on. So why would I be experiencing it today? Like, and how do you clear that?
In most cases, it's in the DNA. It's just in the genes. It's something through the genes. Simple as. And let me give you an example from my life. So I've always been needle phobic, and I've done a lot of work on myself, and I had some surgery earlier this year on my inner ear, but I did a lot of regression to release a lot of fear from past lives where horrible things had happened to me. And I went to have surgery, but I've always had a problem with needles. Now, that came partly from my childhood, because I was really quite sick as a child, and there were, medicine in the 1960s was more dark age than it is now. So they were jabbing me, and of course it was pretty terrifying. So the trauma from my childhood is part of the reason why I'm scared of needles. However, my mother, when she was 15 years old, she had all of her teeth taken out without any anesthetic by a quack dentist.
Oh my
This
goodness.
bastard came to my mum's home when she was 15, working class family. This man had a suit and a tie and carried a briefcase, so he looked official. So they thought he knew what he was doing. He checked all the children. They were very poor. There was 8 children. Checked all of the mouths and said to my mum, she had a gum disease. He had to take all of her teeth out because he got paid so much per tooth. Now, she still says to this day, she's 92 now, she said not only was she in agony physically for months afterwards, but the emotional agony. She was a beautiful looking woman, girl, the emotional pain of that. So of course I've inherited that. So that's part of my needle problem. Now my number one daughter, coming down this generation now, she has a needle phobia. She's hardly ever had a needle in her life. And when she was a kid, we looked after her. Where she got it from? She's got it from me and my mum. So this is how it can come down. And the strange thing is that of all the regression stuff we talk about, the only scientific stuff that has been proved scientifically is that we inherit traumas from our ancestors, and that the science has showed, I think, that it goes 4 generations back. I actually find it often goes further than that. Shamanically, of course, they talk about healing the ancestors up to 7 generations back. So when I did my shamanic training years ago, there was a lot of talk about healing the ancestors up to 7 generations back. And there is this belief that if you can heal your stuff now that you've inherited from an ancestor, that they also will be healing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's another good reason for doing regression. Because it's not just healing you, it's potentially healing the ancestors.
That is so powerful. Hi, Kathy Henley Little, because, I've often wondered now that he's no longer alive, but the first year I was, because I've been on the network now just over 6 years, and he had come on the first year, and his name was Dr. Chuck Kennedy, and he had a doctorate, I think, in neuropsychology or something. He was a nurse, but he had mapped the region of the brain where he believes psychic ability was, and he thinks it's behind the left ear. He named it the region of psi. But the reason I bring him up, he was actually studying why people such as myself that would be working as a psychic medium or an energy healer or something in that field, it's mainly women, not all women, but mainly, and up to 90% he's come across. He was running a research study for a while. I know I participated in it. Most of us have some type of autoimmune issue, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, whatever it may be. And he wanted to understand that. And he was actually looking into the maternal mitochondria to see what kind of genetic material was being carried through the ancestry. So it's interesting with the work you're doing, being able to get to the root of it. And like you said, not only healing or working with that person that's looking for the help that you're working with, but healing the generations before and probably after, I would think too, right?
Yeah. And there's 2 things that come from what you just said there. One is my experience, and I devote a whole chapter in the book to this, is my clients' past lives as witches, where they've died as being accused of being witches or persecuted of being witches.
That was me, one of
well,
those.
I find that virtually every person who comes to me who is clairvoyant or psychic, I've treated lots of mediums over the years, have had past lives where they've been persecuted as witches. They weren't very often; they were just herbal healers or, etc. But in the vast majority of cases, my clients who are working as mediums or psychic clairvoyants, etc., they have had, in most cases, they've been killed as witches in past lives. And so what the beautiful thing is, an example, a lady came to me, she was very gifted psychically, but she was terrified about sitting in front of people doing readings. The very thought of sitting there with people looking at her expectantly, she just clammed up, and she started to do the cards, she'd do tarot cards instead, because it was as if, well, I could take attention away from me by getting people to look at the cards. She didn't need that. She had the gift. We found in a past life that she had her tongue cut out because they said she was a witch, and she was, talking the devil's talk and stuff like that. And so, of course, in this lifetime, the subconscious is saying, if I do something psychically, I'll have my tongue cut out. Horrible things will happen. Because the subconscious does that. It just puts 2 and 2 together and makes 5 sometimes.
Because it doesn't know time, right? Because time only exists on this planet. Time does not exist anywhere else. It's a man-made concept. So,
yeah. Going back to the spirit attachment stuff, I always want to quantify this, because people often get scared. They talk about spirits. Oh my goodness, it's horrible. The vast majority of spirit attachments are just lost spirits. They're just lost, confused, sad, hopeless. They just need somebody to say, this is where you need to go now. And the vast majority of them move over very easily and go home and then leave the client. Having said that, shall I tell you a story at the book?
You tell us you got lots of stories. I've got some examples here. We're not going to have enough time. I know I'm going to have to ask you to come back. I know I am, if you're open to it.
Well, this lady brought her teenage daughter to see me. And the daughter was saying she had depression, she had confidence issues, but her head was all over the place. She couldn't concentrate at school. She felt isolated. She didn't want to be around the other kids. And the mom sat in on the session with me, and I'm glad she did, because I asked the girl, so what was happening? And she told me how bad she felt. But she said, sometimes it's as if I'm not myself. And it's as if something is telling me to do things. Oh. And then she said, sometimes I look in the mirror, and it's as if I sort of I can see half of myself, as if there's something else there. And immediately I thought, this could be spirit attachment. But I don't tell that to my clients. I never lead my clients. They come up with this stuff spontaneously. Yeah. So with her mom watching, I guided her into trance. And I use this particular technique, which is a technique that I've specialized in over the years. I've created a regression system, which I now train therapists with around the world. And basically, it takes the guesswork out of therapy. If somebody goes to the doctor with anxiety, why have I got anxiety? Well, your subconscious knows. It's caused by a trauma in the past. And so with this technique, I get the client's subconscious to take control of one of the fingers. And a finger just moves all by itself, or a hand moves all by itself. And that movement is a yes to any of my questions. So I then say to the subconscious, every time you want to say yes, the hand will move all by itself.
Okay.
Or the finger will move. And so I'm asking the subconscious, as the girl's in trance, have there been any traumas in your present lifetime causing these issues? And it said, no movement of the finger. Okay, next question. Are there any past life causes? No. Are there any ancestral traumas causing these issues? No movement of the finger. Okay. Now, I usually don't ask this next question unless I get no.
Okay.
Are there any spirit attachments which are causing these issues? Immediately, the finger shot up in the air. Yes. Bang. And at that stage, I'm thinking, oh, shit. Because this lady has brought her daughter for therapy. And now it's going into this bloody woo-woo stuff with spirit attachment. So anyway, I thought, well, I've got to do this. So I went into my spirit release protocol, which is talking to the spirit and getting it to move on. And the girl, as she's in trance talking with me with her eyes closed, she said, it's like there are two spirits. There's a little boy here. There's a little boy, and he's very lost and very sad. But there's also a man in black, and he's standing over behind you, looking at your books on the bookshelves. And as she said those words, Lorilei, a chill went right the way down my spine, the man in black. And I thought, okay. So we went through the spirit release protocol, and the little boy went home. His loved ones came from spirit to take him home, and it was very beautiful. But we weren't sure. She said, I think the man in black's gone. But do you know, when she was, this is the other thing I should have mentioned, quite often when all my sessions are online nowadays, 29 countries around the world. But when I was doing in-house sessions, if a spirit attachment was there, the room would often go cold. It would just go cold. And this happened when she was talking about the man in black, the room went cold.
So you knew he wasn't gone.
He wasn't gone, but I did my best to move him on. But I wasn't sure at the end of the session. She said, I think he's gone, but I'm not sure. He's not behind you and behind on the bookshelves anymore. Okay, fine. So we finished the session. I turned around to Mom and was really worried in case Mom was going to tear me off a strip. What the hell's all this about? We came for therapy and there's spirit attachments. And the Mom just looked at me. She said, I thought it might be that. I thought it might be that. So the girl felt a lot better. Mm-hmm. They left. And this was in the days where I was working and living in the same building. My office was in the house where I was working. And this was my last session of the evening. And I didn't feel comfortable. I just felt a bit on edge. So I'm turning the lights off, and then I would go up to get to bed. Something was watching me, Lorilei. Now, I'm a very down-to-earth fella. I've got my feet on the ground. I don't claim to be clairvoyant or psychic. I use my intuition a lot, but, there are people who...
I don't. Everybody has it.
I think they have, but I tend to be, I'm a clod. I'm an earthbound clod. Okay. But something was watching me. And that night, I had a very disturbed sleep. I woke up the next morning, and I thought, it's here. The energy was weird. It felt cold. Wherever I went,
he was going to hang out with you. He was looking at your books.
Well, so I called a friend of mine who's an ex-white witch, and he does house clearances. He would go to houses and clear spooks out. And I said, Andy, I think I've got a spook here. Do you think you can come over and do a bit of work to send it off or check if it's here? And he said, yeah, I'll be over tomorrow, Burgess. I said, well, can't you come today? Yeah. He said, no, I'm busy. Are you sure?
Today,
No, I can't come today, Burgess. I'll come tomorrow. So that night, another restless night, I was looking over my shoulder all the time when I was watching TV.
When someone's watching you. Whether people believe you or not. I am sure most people have felt that. When something is watching you. You can feel it.
I've had this experience many years ago. I used to run a restaurant. We had a haunted restaurant, and certainly there were things. I recognize that feeling. Anyway, Andy came the next morning, but I woke up the next morning. I thought, oh, it feels different in here. And Andy came and he checked around. He said, there's nothing here, Burgess. I think it's gone. He said, I think actually the energy here is just too light for it, But he said, the men in black, the ones in black and the ones in green, they're the ones you've got to bother about. You've got to worry about. So basically he said it's gone. So it's gone for an easier target, you could say. But that taught me a lesson that until then I thought all the spirit attachments were really just lost. Occasionally, very occasionally, there may be one which is a bit more malevolent. And that really needs somebody with specialist knowledge who specializes in doing that type of spirit release work. But they are very unusual.
I can tell you though, and what I had, it was like a dream that happened 10 minutes ago, 17 years ago. And there was a man sitting in the tree in my front yard. And I was outside and I had hurt my back, and I was still married to my first husband at the time, and I had to keep busy. I couldn't really get up. I had young children, but I was creating and making pet accessories. And one day, just before that, I was able to get out, and I went around to some local shops here, and everybody wanted to carry my merchandise, but nobody wanted a commission. I couldn't believe this. And the evening before, my then husband and I had just watched the movie The Secret that had come out. That's how long ago this was. So I came home. His name's Earl. He knows about this story. He signed off a release for the episode, so he doesn't mind if I mention him. Anyways, I remember telling him, and he said, we were joking. He goes, well, maybe it's The Secret. I said, yeah, maybe. Then I had this dream. So this man says to me, I can tell you what he was wearing, everything, right down to his hair, everything. And he goes, hello, Lorilei. He says, you know that little business of yours? Well, that's nothing. I can give you wealth. I can give you fame, anything beyond your wildest dreams. All you have to do is agree to follow me. And I remember in this stream, and it's not radio friendly, where I told that thing to go. And I kept saying, who are you? Who are you? Because how did you know that what little business I'm doing? I just happened to be having this experience earlier in the day, and I'm having this dream with you. And he told me his name. He spelt it for me. And he told me he was a demon. I don't know if he was a demon or not. But again, I told him in no way, shape, or form was I agreeing to follow you, where to go. And he started laughing at me. And he said, oh, no, 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 no. Every time you see a crow or a raven, you'll know who it is. And I remember in the dream calling on Archangel Michael, the most brilliant flash of sapphire, white and silver, woke up in a sweat, shaking and crying, which I do not do. It was at 3 a.m. and all heck did break loose. I don't know where it came from, but my whole point about this is, yes, they're not lurking in every corner, but I always say that, people, not everybody's thinking love and light. And this is what's bringing me to, I know it's a bit of a longer story. I have had somebody, not purposely, send me 2 very negative things. And it wasn't me imagining it. It's in this house. I don't have the level of activity I ever had in the previous home. And they were angry. They were powerful and able to move and manipulate energy, but they were angry. They were angry with me. It wasn't something I had done. I don't want to give too many details away because I don't want to give away their identity. But so what I did when we got locked out at 20 degrees below zero and couldn't get in the front door, and there was a painting that hung at the bottom of the stairs. There'd been a whole bunch of crazy stuff happening, like that, there was something paranormal going on. But the picture, there was a railing down in the front doors right here. It fell perfectly across the doorway and wedged itself between the railing and the door. It had hung there for 5 years. There's no way that thing just came down on its own. So what I did was I cleansed the whole space. I do very luckily have somebody that I now work with that, you want to do a little check-in. It's always nice to have friends like for yourself checked in, and they were gone. But that's the whole point, right? Even the power of the mind. Have you run into that where maybe someone is really negative, right? Or people that dabble? Have you run into anybody with that?
Not so much dabble. I've certainly had people who have had drug trips, who have been, had horrible drug trips where they picked something up and brought something back with them. But I can't remember anybody who's just specifically dabbled. But I think I've had people who have said I have actually said I played with a Ouija board. Yes, actually, I've had people who said I played with a Ouija board and things like that, and then things happened afterwards. But most of them go home. This is the good thing.
It is, yeah.
And I think I don't want to I never want people. Having said that, people will say, well, what can I do to make sure I don't pick up any spirit attachments? First of all, keep your energies high.
Yes.
Secondly, smudge regularly or burn incense or whatever. Thirdly, stand in your power as a human being. And if you feel,
I'm so glad you said that. I was going to bring it up. Please continue.
If you feel that there's something negative around, you stand in your power and you say, I am a sovereign being of the universe. You have no right to be here. If there's anything negative that's around me in any way, you must leave this place now. And you tell them to go. And the 99% of them will go because they have no power. You have the power.
Even with the negative stuff we had, and that we were all getting physically attacked and injuries and stuff, until I really started to learn about energy, like attracts like energy, kept hearing, raise your vibration. And I always used to say back in the day, it's a fine line in standing in your dominion and between fear, when you can't see when something's going to do something, right? But you are absolutely right. Standing within your dominion and also understanding about like attracts like energy. So even if you're not feeling particularly happy or jolly, I always say to people, everybody has a movie.
Yes.
Most of us do that will make you laugh. You know it's going to make you laugh no matter how many times you watch it. Or having friends over that you know you're going to have a little get together. You're going to feel better. Bring some of nature inside. Open your windows, get the light in. Like you said, smudging. I like to use Palo Santo myself, but whatever works for you, right? There's so many things. So that's why I'm spending a little bit more time on this, because sometimes we do talk about the paranormal on the channel, and with the advent of TV, everything's a demon. It's a demon. It's a demon. It's a demon.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
it's not, right?
No.
So I'm so glad you shared that story.
People even use the word entity as well for these spirits, which I just think is way over the top. It's just so, stand in your power. Thank you. Is that Michelle? Yeah, stand in your power as a human being and tell these things to go. But they're not entities. Entities is such a horrible negative word. They're just lost spirits. That's all they are. They're spirits of people who have died in some way, and maybe there's a scare to pass on. Maybe they've been brainwashed with hell. This is if they've, because for hundreds of years people have been brainwashed with the concept of hell if you've done something wrong. So of course they die and they think, well, I'm going to go to hell, so I don't want to go to hell. I'm going to stick around here on earth as a ghost and connect.
Or they pass quickly. Or I have run into spirits that had addictions and didn't want to leave for awaiting maybe whatever reason, but also they can't physically experience it, so they may latch on to somebody that also imbibes in the substance they have. Some people it's revenge and anger. There's many different reasons why spirits stay. The majority I have found, though, is they are very afraid of what awaits them due to beliefs of persecution or religious dogma.
And as far as I'm concerned, my belief, hell does not exist. Simple as.
I agree. That's going to open a whole can of worms. Before we get started,
we'll probably also speak on plenty, but I've done thousands and thousands and thousands of past life regression sessions. Thousands, literally. I've done over 15,000 therapy sessions over the last 33 years. I have never had one single person, because of course most past life regression is death trauma. We're releasing death trauma. I have clients in my sessions dying every day, and it's near 60% of regression past life therapy is releasing death trauma at least. But I have never had one single client who has gone over into spirit having died and then got shot down into hell in any way, or even mentions hell.
I agree. Even with near-death experiences, like I say when I open the show, over 40 years, professionally and personally. Now, there have been the occasional person who comes back with a hell-like experience, but I also believe it's part of their belief system, and I have a theory. Now, I don't know if it's right or not, but I think that what happens to those, and there could be other reasons, but one of them where I've seen a few cases where the person their heartbeat may not have totally stopped, like maybe 1 or 2 beats per minute. They may have a breath here or there, and I believe there's different astral realms. So I think they may be having an experience in that lower realm is what happens, because any other one you look at, and the other thing that always irks me, people say, oh, well, you just see the light and you go through the tunnel. I've yet to hear a story that everybody's just seeing a light and going through a tunnel. People have the most unique, incredible experiences when they leave this lifetime. I agree.
Absolutely. So, for me, it's a big myth, and it needs to be thrown out, because it's people who believe in it. I'm sorry, it's a belief. It was something created by the Catholic Church to frighten the hell out of people, to control them. So simple as. But anyway, so spirit release stuff is always interesting, and I actually write in the book about, we haven't got time to cover that story, but one of my best friend, his spirit attachment story is quite incredible, but I think that's too long to talk about tonight.
Yeah, but we can hang on to it so people could buy your book. But I'm going to pause right there, because Kevin reminded me, I love these kind of conversations, and I had such a good time the last time you were on, but I got to do the station ID. I always forget. I'm supposed to do it at the top of the hour, because I'll put Kevin's comment up, because he reminded me, and he was very subtle. So thank you, Kevin. I'm trying to find it. He just said at 7:00. If you're just tuning in, you are listening to the Angel Rock. That's how I start on UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio Network. You can listen to us on the Gulf Coast in the U.S. On 105.3 FM, and also in Mississippi, 107.7 FM out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana. And I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin, and I'm having a phenomenal conversation with a returning guest, Steve Burgess. He has a brand new book, and we are talking about some of the interesting cases that he has had with his history of working as a hypnotherapist and past life regressionist. I hope I didn't get that wrong, Steve. But okay. So you guys, I want to remind you, though, if you like what you see, please like, share, and subscribe. And just tell all your friends and family about us, because it's not all just UFO and paranormal on this network. I think it just depends. We are growing. Sometimes people move on to other things. We get new hosts, but we're up to between 30 and 35 live hosts. We stream several shows daily live. And there's really something for everybody on this network. I'd like to give a huge shout out and thank you to Joe Montaldo. We are broadcasting in his home, in his studio in New Orleans, and Steve's in Florida. I'm in Canada, the beauty of the internet. And also to Michelle DeRoche, who also is our station manager, and she also has her own shows, Beyond the Outer Realm, on Tuesdays in the afternoon, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, and then the Outer Realm on Wednesday and Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. Like to thank her. So I think that's everything. I'm just rattling on here because I have so many questions, Steve, and I just want to make sure we're not missing anything. We got Julie Jean Bassett here. I'm going to give her a huge shout out. She is animal communicator. So if you've got a problem with your beloved little fur baby, however you want to refer to them, you're at your wit's end, you are not sure what to do. And I've run into people where it's like either we fix this issue, or unfortunately they don't want to, but they may have to rehome them. I'm telling you, Julie's your person. She's helped me with some of my own fur babies, on top of I've taken her animal communication course. She's got a new one coming up. I believe it's the third weekend in September. Feel free to post the date, Julie. If you guys are on Facebook, we are not seeing your comments tonight, and I apologize. So if you can and you want to join the conversation, please come over to YouTube. You can join us on UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio Network, or you can join us on my YouTube, which is The Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin, because usually we see Facebook comments and I'm not seeing any. What else do I want to tell you? I just lost my train of thought. I got to ask you, Steve, so I'm going to read this comment. It says, a woman who came to you suffering from a serious and rare liver condition, who had been given only 6 months to live by her, I'm guessing her medical consultant. Hypnotherapy saved her life. And you put in brackets, she is still alive 27 years later. And the surgery we undertook without anesthetic highlights the incredible power of the subconscious mind. We got to hear about that.
Okay. Yeah, well, this was a lady right at the start of my career as a hypnotherapist who had a serious liver disease, which is called focal nodular hyperplasia. Very rare. Okay. I mean, we've all heard of it, haven't we? No. There's only about 12 people in the UK at any one time who suffer from this illness, and nobody survives. And hers was the most aggressive of all the 12 in England at that time. Those were the most aggressive. Now, she was brought to me. Two people had to bring her to my office, help her up the stairs, and she sat in front of me, and she looked like a stick insect. She couldn't eat. She was sick all the time. She was in pain all the time. And basically, there were tumours which were growing on her liver. Now, the tumours weren't cancerous, but they became so big, they were the size of grapefruits. And of course, what then happened is they're pushing all the internal organs out of the way. They stopped the liver working right, so the liver's not doing what it's supposed to do. So she was toxic all the time. She was just in pain all the time. She couldn't eat. She'd lost weight. She was actually an ex-policewoman.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
She had a young daughter, I think 5-year-old daughter. She couldn't do anything with her daughter. She just spent all day long laying on the sofa in pain. Oh. And she just sat in front of me and she shared a story, and she said, you're my last hope. My specialist has said he can't do anything. He's given up. Go away and write your will. You've got about 6 months to live. So I then began a process with her of talking about the emotional causes of illness, first of all, because it's not just about hypnotizing her to pretend that she's getting better. That may help, but the liver is the seat of anger. And so, of course,
I know, yes.
Exactly. So,
but you got to the root, it sounds like, not just a Band-Aid. You're getting to the root, right?
The root. So she understood that. She listened to me, and I guided her into trance in that first session, and she went into trance beautifully. She started to relax. I gave her some post-hypnotic suggestions that from this time on, the pain would begin to recede. It would begin to soften and lessen. She came out of trance we did about 40 minutes trance just in that first session. She came out of trance. The pain level had dropped from 10 out of 10 to 4 out of 10 just by doing that. She looked different. She was able to stand up. She was able to walk down the stairs unaided. She came back a week later and she sat in front of me. She said, "I've stopped taking morphine. I don't need it anymore. I just don't need it." So she was getting a life back, because when you're doped up on morphine, as you know, you're all over the place. She started to eat. She started to feel better. We then began the process of inner work. The root causes of the liver disease, traumas in this life, and 2 past lives. And we worked through all this stuff. In one of the past lives, she was a Native American woman who was killed in a raiding party in her village by another tribe. And a Native American brave came up behind her and stabbed her through the back with a dagger and killed her. And of course, guess where the dagger went? Through the liver area. In the second past life, she was a young Polish teenage boy in the Second World War who was bayoneted to death by the Nazis and then thrown into a river. Guess where the bayonets went? Through the liver. So, of course, she's brought that weakness in that area of her body, in her energy field, from the past life into this life. And then stuff in this life had exacerbated that to ultimately cause the liver disease. So we worked through lots of sessions. You know, this is not a 5-minute job. It's not about doing 1 or 2 sessions and everybody's miraculously healed, although that occasionally happens. But generally, it's about doing the work. And doing the work means doing sessions to release the emotions and the energies that are locked inside. And she cried a lot. She shook a lot. We see a lot of this in regression therapy, the body moving and jerking as it releases the energies, the tears, etc. She started to get her life back. She was able to eat. She got stronger. She put weight on. The pain, she just kept it at a low level through her mind. She knew how to do that now. I taught her self-hypnosis. And then one day she appears in my office for her next session. She sat in front of me and she said, "I saw my specialist on Friday and he wants to do the surgery again that we've done twice before, and it failed twice before." And all of a sudden, these words came out of my mouth from somewhere. I said, "We'll do the operation in hypnosis." And then I thought, who the hell said that? Where did that come from? I've just said that. Before I could take it back, she said, "Really?" "Well, yes, of course," I said. "Absolutely, we'll do it in hypnosis," hoping that her specialist would say, "Don't be ridiculous. We're not going to do an operation." Because what had happened with the surgery before, she'd had it twice before. And the problem is that she had to drink a dye before the surgery so that during the operation, the surgeon could see up on a screen what he was doing, because he had to thread a plastic tube up through blood vessels to the liver to inject crystals into the tumors to try to cut off the blood supply. But she's highly allergic to so many things. So she spent the whole of the surgery twice before retching and vomiting. So there's this poor surgeon trying to do this highly delicate operation on this body that's moving all the time. The first time he damaged the liver itself. The second time he damaged her gallbladder so badly, she had to have a gallbladder removed. And both times she was in hospital for a week and a half to 2 weeks after the surgery. So she went back and spoke to the surgeon, said, "My therapist said we can do it in hypnosis." And he said, "Yes." So I'm thinking, oh, shit, at that stage. what have I done here? What have you done here, Burgess? You don't get
Yeah.
trained to do hypnosurgery. Not in the 1990s, you didn't. But I thought, okay, she's good at hypnosis. She's good in trance. So we then started doing sessions to practice so I could take her into trance and anesthetize her whole body, completely anesthetize the body. That went well. So the day of the surgery arrived. Now, I expected that the surgeon would want to talk to me beforehand about this. No, not at all. I just got the message, turn up at 9 o'clock. Monday morning, the surgery is at 9:30.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So I arrived at the hospital. This is a big, major hospital in a city in the UK. And it was chaos. It was chaos. They were trying to find me caps and gowns and the surgery gear so I could be in the operating theatre.
Be sterile.
The sterile stuff. Well, they couldn't find it. I mean, everything I had was the wrong size. I write about it in the book in a funny way, because it just looked ridiculous. I'm trying to do this work with dignity, and I just look like the cross between T-Rex and Mr. Blobby. Just crazy.
I could see that. I just got a flash.
So, I mean, the shirt was too small, so my hands were sticking up like the clogs were too big, and anyway. But anyway, so I arrived at the operating theatre, and she's laid on the table. All the operating team are there, the machines are there beeping, and the lights were down low. And the surgeon just said to me, he said, "Right, you've got 5 minutes.
Do your thing."
Okay.
No pressure.
So fortunately, we'd rehearsed. So I guided her into trance. I then anesthetized her body. And then what I did is I disassociated her, which means to take her out of her body. And the standard classic disassociation would be to take her up into a corner of the room so she could look down at herself and watch what was happening to her body. But I thought, I wouldn't want to watch somebody digging around in my intestines, thank you very much. So what I did is I got her to imagine floating up through all 13 floors of the hospital out into the sky. And then I guided her on a journey around the stars, around the planets. So all the time, throughout the whole of the surgery, whilst the surgeon was doing his stuff, I was guiding her to be out of her body, away from everything, around the stars. The only person who had a problem with the operation was me.
You?
Because I'd forgotten I don't like blood.
Oh, okay.
So when the surgeon... I just looked round at the wrong time, Lorilei.
Oh, no.
The surgeon took the scalpel and he cut into her groin. Again, no anesthetic, remember. She just, no movement, as if she was dead. And this spurt of blood suddenly shot in the air, and I just went green and yellow. I started to feel as if I was going to pass out. And I'm thinking, I've got to be here for her.
Yeah.
And the surgeon looked at me and said, "Are you okay?" And I went, "No." So get him a stool. So they plonked me down on a stool, and I did my best to bring myself around, which I managed to. But the whole operation was an amazing success. Whereas before it had taken 2.5 hours, this time it had taken 90 minutes. The surgeon at the end of the surgery said, "I've never seen anything like this in the whole of my career. It was like operating on a dead body. There were no defensive reflexes at all." He said, "Give me one of your cards. We must talk about this."
Though, from a medical perspective, Steve, part of what the issue is with surgery, never mind what the body goes through, it's getting rid of the damn anesthesia effects for up to a couple of weeks after, the drugs, the potential for pneumonia, all these things, and you've just completely mitigated that with what happened.
Yeah. And don't get me started, Lorilei, on the disgust I feel that very few birthing rooms use hypnotherapists. In my opinion, every single...
I used to work in that field and had 2 children. My first was 5 days of labor. I kid you not, 5 days.
Awful. Well, using hypnotherapy for childbirth, it speeds up the birth in the vast majority of cases. There's very often no need for gas or air or any form of anesthesia. The whole thing is much nicer for mother and baby, etc., etc. The benefits are massive and well proven. Is it used? No. It isn't used Why isn't it used? Because anesthetics are very profitable. Secondly, I'm sorry to say, most surgeons are male and they've never given birth. You know, if all men gave birth, all families would have one child.
I will tell you, as a student, I was in with one OB-GYN that no longer works, thank God. And first of all, he screamed at me because I mean, I was a student. I think I was in third year university. Did you touch that drape? No. Anyways, I remember and then when I worked up on the floor, I worked in the NICU. So I used to go to a lot of dangerous deliveries. I remember him screaming at this woman, "Shut up, it doesn't hurt." And then, just to get even with her, took the scalpel and cut her very far down, almost down to half her leg. I've watched that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, shocking. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Whereas hypnotherapy, peaceful for the baby to come in, peaceful for mom, way less healing time. I mean, and I've seen women try to do it on their own, but you know what? It would be better to have someone guide you.
I mean, with my clients who come for natural childbirth, as I call it, we do a lot of work, but also I teach them self-hypnosis so that on the day when they're giving birth, they can take themselves into trance. And it's not as good as if you have a therapist there, but it is still very good. And let me tell you just a quick story, just before we go back to my client with the operation. I read about a hypnotherapist some years ago who also was a children's entertainer. So on a Saturday, he used to go and do children's parties. And one day he was a hypnotherapist during the week, but Saturdays he had a great job, you know, doing children's parties. And at one party, there was all these kids watching his magic tricks and all these things. And at the end of the act, this little girl came up. She was about 5 years old. And she said, "I know who you are. You're the man that used to talk to me when I was in my mommy's tummy."
Oh, my gosh. Are you
And then when her mom came to pick her up to take her home, that was his patient. 5 years earlier, they'd done natural childbirth together. And that fetus heard his voice, and now this little girl recognized him. Isn't that interesting?
My gosh. I am just blown away.
Yeah. Anyways, but it's obscene. That is the word I use. It is obscene that hypnotherapy is not used in every single hospital around the world where childbirth is being done. It is obscene.
Or even surgery. You know what you made me think of? About surgery. I have a lot of allergies, and I had to have a lot of surgery when I was about 18. And I had a pediatrician who was an allergist from he was from South America, but he was working up here. He also did hypnotherapy, and I didn't know this. And last time you were on, I didn't even think about this. I remember back in the day, because he was training me to be able to go into a state of relaxation so I wouldn't require as much pain medication. And I can tell you, and I just turned 60. I was about 18. I'm sitting in this chair. I can hear his voice. And he told me I had a red balloon, to picture that, tied to my arm. And my arm just went right up. I almost came out of trance because I was so shocked. The other thing he had, so this had to be in the early to mid 80s. He had this program, and I still remember it. I had to wear this band on my forehead, and computers weren't even a thing then, but he had like this computer screen with this very crude video game, and I had to be able to focus with this band on to be able to make the egg go down it. I wish to God I could ask him. I don't even know if he's still around anymore, but I'd forgotten about that. I just recently remembered all that. So I've had some training with hypnotherapy. I've had past life regressions done. I get together with a couple ladies that are close friends of mine. We connect with spirit, and we're not the only ones. There's hundreds of thousands of people doing this around the world, doing energy work or whatever. But sometimes when we're stumped, because they usually talk to us in riddles, what we get, I've had a session, and I don't necessarily remember a lot that came through, but when I look back at the notes, I'm blown away with the information that comes through, because it didn't come from me. It must have come from a past life or something.
It's
crazy.
Yeah. You know, just mentioning allergies always have emotional causes.
Let's hear about that. Let's hear about that.
I mean, I've got a couple of clients at the moment. One in the book I write about was a client in Stavanger in Norway. She's actually a hypnotherapist, and I was training her on a hypnotherapy training course I used to run out there. And she said, I've got these dreadful pollen allergies. She said, from spring onwards, the whole of my year is ruined. She said, I can hardly go out the house, whole of summer, all the doors and windows have to be closed. She said, I am streaming, itching, wheezing, everything. And so she did a session with me, and I guided her into trance, and the subconscious indicated that there was a past life connected to causing the pollen allergy. And she was actually quite a dramatic client. Now, this sometimes happens in regression. People go into the past life death as if it's actually happening. Sometimes we see people screaming and yelling and writhing. It's perfectly safe as long as you go through it and release it. So it sounds dramatic, but as long as the therapist knows what they're doing, the healing is extraordinary. But she was laid there and she was retching and almost vomiting all the way through the session. Okay, for 40 minutes, she was towards the end of the session, this eased down and then she died. What was happening? Now, she was what we call a non-visual client, because not everybody sees the past lives.
It's just
people, they just feel it. We call it kinesthetically, through the physical effect and the emotions.
Was it a fire?
She was dying in a past life, but as she was dying, it was of starvation. She was desperately grabbing grass and trying to eat grass to stay alive.
I thought you were going to say it was a fire, because
it was making a vomit. And the vomit, that was what was the vomiting about. So a subconscious, of course, now this was probably happening in the summer when the grass seeds are obvious, the pollen is in the air. So her subconscious, she was eating grass and dying. The pollen comes out now, the subconscious says grass equals death. And so therefore it gives her this physiological response because it thinks she's going to die, and the pollen allergy comes through. Wow. It was completely cleared. I think we did 2 sessions, completely cured. And I spoke to her a couple of years afterwards. She said, the difference, Burgess, has been extraordinary. She said, my life is back in the summer. I can go out. There is no allergic response at all. I've got a client at the moment in Oklahoma. Beautiful lady, very lovely soul. She's had migraines for 40 years. She no longer has migraines because migraines are nearly always caused by deaths in past lives where there's been blows to the head.
That's how I figure, yeah.
It can also be ancestors stuff. So we've done a lot of regression. She no longer has migraines. We're now working on her allergies to release her allergies. And these are coming through from her ancestors' lives at the moment. So she's inherited them from her ancestors' lives. So,
what about infertility? You know why I'm asking you? Because I have something called polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's affected not only, and talk about ancestrally, both of my boys, have they both been alive, have the same insulin resistant issues as I do, liver issues, all these things that my boys have that I have that we think is inheritable almost sounds like energetically too could be ancestral. So what about infertility? Have you run into, because that's a real problem for people.
Yeah. I actually write about quite a stunning case in the book.
Okay.
Well, I actually say that I've got any number of clients pregnant over the years.
Not you though, right? Just
I didn't quite put that right, did I?
I knew what you meant.
Now I need my notes for this, because this lady came and she was desperate to get pregnant. Yeah. She couldn't get pregnant. It just wasn't happening for her. And there were, how many past lives? 7 past lives, which were connected to causing her infertility now.
I believe it, because I got a tumor from the fertility drugs I was on, and I'm lucky to have had the 2 I did. So I can't wait to hear this, because this is a major problem for people. So I'd love to hear that.
All physical issues have emotional causes. In the first past life, she was a young woman, maybe medieval times, who was not quite right in the head, and her father used to beat her around the head a lot. And I think that damaged us mentally. So she then just lived a life in a hut in the village, just as a whore, because she couldn't do anything else. There was a lot of dread, a lot of anxiety inside her. A man kept coming who she felt feelings for, but he was just using her for sex. That's all he was. Just wanted her for sex. So it was a really empty life. When he had sex with her, he'd just leave her and bugger off and, disappear. It was a horrible life, just empty, and then she died. We found out, now this was interesting, because we found out that her husband in her present lifetime was the man who just wanted to have sex with her all the time. And this was a theme of the other past lives. In the second past life, she was a member of a tribe, an ethnic tribe, out hunting, and she was shot in the neck by an arrow and died. But she realized that she was betrayed by her brother in that life. Her brother had shot her. It was a man. She was a man in the past life, because obviously we often change sex, as you know. Her brother had betrayed her in the past life. Guess who the brother was in this lifetime? Her husband now. So, often the same soul from past lives get reborn in our present lifetime. The next past life, she was a Jew in the Second World War who survived being in a concentration camp. But in order to survive, she had to completely shut herself down, totally shut all of her feelings down. She gets liberated at the end of the war, moves over to America, gets married, has children, but there's no love there. She can't open her heart. There's no love at all. She's so shut down. And then she realized, she said, I've shut myself down in my present life as well. I never allow myself to feel. I never allow myself to feel any love. The next past life, she was in Victorian England as a gay man who had to hide. In fact, he was gay, but he had a female friend, and she said, they're quite well to do. Let's get married. And then, that will be people. You can pretend that you're married. People won't know that you're gay. So they got married, and then she used it against him. And she really used it against him in a big way. She blackmailed him and his life was hell for the rest of his life. He died young just to get out of that lifetime.
A lot of sad lives.
Then you see there's some, again, confusion over her sexuality from the past life. And she's wanting to get pregnant in this lifetime. So there's confusion there. In another past life, she was a shaman in a Native American tribe. The elders of the tribe were using him to control people. And he didn't want to do this. He had enough of it. So he decided to take a drug and poison himself and died. But he wanted to protect his son, because they threatened, if the elders said, if you don't do what we want you to do, then we'll kill your son. So what he did is he pretended to die naturally. They didn't know that he'd taken a poison. But again, then we're getting another level to this. A child brings pressure, because I have to protect my son in that lifetime. So these are all little things building up against getting pregnant in this life. In the next time, she went into an ancestor's life, where she was her great-great-great-grandfather. And his sons emigrated to the USA, and he never saw them again. And there was so much sadness. So the subconscious there was saying having children equals sadness.
Yes.
She then went into her mother's life, and her mother was very sad that she only had one child. Having children equals pain again and sadness. So there's these subconscious energies about children and pain. It's like the subconscious didn't want her to get pregnant to protect her from the emotional pain. And then the last past life, she was a man who was gay, who had unrequited love for a woman, and he had to repress all of his feelings for her. So again, confusion around sexuality. Her husband in this life had been in several of the past lives in different ways. So again, her husband's trying to get her pregnant, and the subconscious is pulling back from him because he'd hurt her so often. So we did all of this work, releasing the past lives, releasing the traumas, releasing the ancestral traumas. 9 months later, she gave birth to twins.
Oh my gosh. Because I got to tell you, I've always been interested in past lives. I can't confirm them, but they felt very real. This was years ago. I was told this. And I had quite a few lives very similar to this lifetime, very strong female, very independent. But I was always punished for that. And I had horrible parents, very, very controlling, many lifetimes like this. And I've often wondered with the infertility that I had, it was like, because I can remember even as a child promising myself, if I ever have children, I will never, ever raise them this way. Ever, 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 ever. And when I tell people this, and they say with no judgment, because your children aren't my children. But I've never yelled at my children. I've never spoke cruelly to them. I have never hit them. But I did try to raise them as loving, productive, kind individuals in the world. But they knew if I wasn't happy, but I did the exact opposite. And I often wonder from those lives before, one of them I fell in love with a man. And I think this was way back in the day when you weren't even to be in the same space as a man. I didn't do anything bad, but my parents sent me to a nunnery. Another one, apparently I was a call girl, but back in the early 1800s, ran my own business, ran whatever, but I did it to escape overbearing, controlling parents. And I had many lives like this. And I was interested that they came through as female, because I know I couldn't have just been female in my past lives, but it kind of makes sense to me now. That's why I asked you about the infertility, right? When we go back and we examine the root cause, which is what you do, you get some answers, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you're able to release that energy which is locked in the body heals. And it's very simple. Very, very simple. Now, okay, I can't claim that this works for everybody. Not everybody can regress, for example. But it works for most people who see it through. And what I often say is that, one of my themes nowadays is about doing the work. I feel we all have a responsibility to do the work on ourselves, to heal ourselves, because as we heal, the planet heals. So, do the work. It don't matter how many sessions it takes or how much work you have to do. Keep doing the work and you will heal.
So we got a few minutes left, because I wanted to ask you if you had any experiences with, I call them off-world, but ETs, but also I'm seeing here, because I see this quite a bit throughout the world, anxiety and OCD. Can it help with those things?
Massively. It's like there's an epidemic of anxiety in the world.
Yes.
It really is. And it's so often we're reacting to inner emotional stuff from the past.
Yes.
So that's, one of the good things about regression therapy is that we become less reactive. Any good therapy, it calms our energy field down. We become less reactive. And because we're less reactive, then the things that used to bother us don't bother us so much, or perhaps don't even bother us at all. Anxiety is classic. We treat it all the time. And I mean, this is how I became a regression therapist in the first place, when I'd been working as a therapist for about 9 months to a year, just doing my standard hypnotherapy stuff, just doing hypnotic suggestion work. When a young fella came to me in his early 20s and he had a severe anxiety state like there was no tomorrow. He sat in my chair in my office. He was shaking and hyperventilating and stuttering and stammering. He'd had to give work up. He couldn't work anymore. He sat at home all day. His wife was sick of it. She said, if you don't get better, I'm going to divorce you. We don't have a life anymore. And I said, so how long have you been anxious for? He said, well, I've always been a worrier, but it's got worse and worse as I've got older. And when the children came along, that's when this exploded. He said, I'm just like this all day long. I can't sleep. So I thought, okay, this is serious stuff. So I guided him into trance, and he went beautifully into trance. He relaxed, he softened, his breathing slowed down. And I'm thinking, I'm on a winner here. This is a good one. So I'm then going through my post-hypnotic suggestion work. From this time on, you're going to feel calmer. From this time on, you're going to feel much more at ease day by day, and every way you're getting better and better. The anxieties are a thing of the past, and just fluffing, suggestions, loads of positive suggestions to let go of the anxiety. And then suddenly, about 10 to 15 minutes in, his whole body went rigid and tense.
Wow.
His hands clawed onto the arms of the chair, and he started looking around and moving. He had his eyes closed, but he's moving as if he's looking around. And then he started to whisper in a loud voice, "No, quickly, hide in here, quickly, shh, shh. Children, bring the children, quickly, they're coming, hide, shh, quiet, they're coming, shh, quiet.
Goodness.
And then all of a sudden, he started to scream and yell and writhe, no, not the children, no, ah!
Oh my goodness.
And he just flopped down in a big heap. And I sat there thinking, what on earth is this?
What just happened?
So I said, how do you feel? Excuse me. I said, how do you feel? He said, I feel wonderful. He's laid in the chair in trance. He said, I've never felt this calm in my life before. I feel absolutely wonderful. I said, what was happening? He said, it was weird. I was a man in another body, in another time. There were soldiers, Nazis, looking for me and the children. And we were hiding, and they found us and they shot us to death. What was that about? I said, it was a past life. I said, that's what it was. I knew it was past life because, I'd been understanding reincarnation since I was 15. I'd not trained in past life regression, though. But Lorilei, his issue was cured in 15 minutes. And I thought, why do I know about this? This is so important. And that's when I first started. I got information about past life regression from the American Past Life Association. I started playing with it, experimenting with it, running past life group workshops. I'm now doing these in the States. I've got one in West Palm Beach in 3 weeks, if anybody's interested, and in San Diego in November, running past life workshops and developing a regression system, which I now use and I teach therapists around the world to use, which is so effective and takes the guesswork out of therapy. So if it wasn't for that young man, then I would probably continue just to be a normal hypnotherapist. But he changed my career, and it just hit me in the face how powerful this stuff is.
Wow. Okay, so there's another comment I see in here. Okay, because we only got a little bit of time left. Thanks for sharing, Keith. I see you more, Ali. Thank you for joining us. Facebook slowly trickling, because I was wondering, are we not on? I even checked while we were talking. Okay, so we didn't even get into EFT, emotional freedom tapping. There's your time in prison with Charles Bronson and the radio play you wrote together. I mean, can you pick one of the, we didn't get into off-worlders. I'm hoping I'm putting you on the spot, and it probably won't be till the new year because I'm booking into them, but I would love to have you back, Steve.
Oh, I'll be so happy to come back. I just love sharing this stuff because I love people to know how powerful this stuff is. And I've been an advocate, an ambassador for regression for all of my career, really. And I've taken a lot of flack for that because, many of my colleagues in the UK for years, we don't talk about past lives, Burgess. That's ridiculous. You'll never get credibility that way. And I kept saying, but it's so effective. It's such a powerful therapy. For goodness sake, look at it. But I'm just pleased I have, because the world has changed so much over the past 10 to 15 years. I have seen extraordinary changes in the world, and I still believe there is a great awakening going on Earth right now. And part of that is people becoming more spiritual, becoming more compassionate generally. And I think that now that people are ready to understand that regression is a very powerful therapy. I think it's the most powerful therapy that I know of, and I've worked in different ones and trained in different ones over the years. For me, regression is the most powerful.
Well, the audience is loving this because every single person keeps just going, oh my gosh, like, wow, that's awesome. Wow, that's so profound. Thank you. Like, so many people have put this because not everybody understands it, right? And I didn't even go there with you. I know you guys, you may not find the video. That's why Back All My Shows up on my YouTube channel. We had lost our first YouTube channel through no fault of our own, and we weren't able to get it back. So most of us back our shows up now, but the audio is still there. And when we on before, Steve? It was about 5 years ago, wasn't it?
I think it was 4 years. It was during the scamdemic. It was the height
Yeah.
of the scamdemic. Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys, you can see there was a previous one, and I'm gonna talk to Steve after this. I'm gonna ask him to come back on because we barely scratched the surface. But you guys will know, like, I'd love for you guys to go out and buy his books. Like, if you were just joining us a little bit late, we just got a few minutes. Do you want to tell them more about your book? Because I love that you wrote it with a touch of humor as well.
Yeah. Well, I call it The Adventures of a Hypnotherapist because there are so many unusual things that I've experienced in my career that I just wanted to bring out. And I mean, the client who thought he had fleas, for example, but he was totally deluded. The man who, when he was in trance, started to masturbate and stuff like that. So
I didn't even bring that one up yet because you listed a few here. Yeah, that must have been embarrassing.
Yeah, so I talk about some of the funny stuff, but also the shocking stuff as well. Working with a client who was part of a satanic paedophile ring when she was a child, who was abused as a child as part of a satanic paedophile ring by her grandfather, who ran the ring.
I've had people on my show that talk about this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and her story was quite extraordinary. That's that type of stuff, but also the alien abduction stuff, EFT, which is quite an extraordinary therapy, working with clients with trichotillomania, the client who was pulling her eyelashes out, for example. So all of that is in the book. Now I call it, the subtitle is Was I Under, which is a sort of a jokey reference because we don't go under hypnosis. And this is the word that Hollywood uses or the general public uses, because, as we go into trance, we go into a relaxed state. We don't go under a relaxed state. Then any therapist who talks, any hypnotherapist, if you ever hear a hypnotherapist say, I'm going to get you to go under, they don't know what they're doing. Don't go with them, because you don't go under anything, you go into trance. But the number of times, Lorilei, I've spent minutes, 10 minutes talking to my client at the start of a session that you're just going to be relaxed. You'll hear everything. You can open your eyes if you want. You'll know everything that you're still thinking when you're in hypnosis.
I wanted to ask you that, so I'm glad you said that, because I can tell you I do remember everything.
Absolutely everything.
And the one where I was a little deeper, as I reread, like it with my permission, it was filmed because we knew a lot of information was going to come out. But I was back in the times of Egypt, and there was a bunch of stuff. I was reading stuff off the hieroglyphics. Well, so I'm glad we filmed it. But I remember as I read it, oh yeah, that happened. But you know what's going on. Like, you're not out of it, so you don't know what's going on.
Absolutely, you're not out of it. So this is the myth. You're not in a coma. You're not under anesthetic. You're just in an inner state. We all go into trance every day when we daydream. When we drive on automatic pilot in the car.
Driving and you wonder how you got home. Like,
absolutely.
You wonder.
If you read a book, if you watch a movie or watch a TV program, that's trance. All the difference is we tend to close the eyes and relax a bit. But the number of times I'll finish a session with my client and they'll open their eyes and they'll say, well, I don't think I was under. I could have opened my eyes, And I go, oh, for sake. I told you could. And it's like a red rag to me nowadays. If a client says, well, I don't think I was under, I grip my teeth and I have to be as kind as I can be and polite. But inside I'm thinking, you
never were under.
Exactly. So I had to put the Was I Under in as a subtitle. So The Adventures of a Hypnotherapist. Was I under?
Yeah, not at all. You never were.
No.
So where can people find you? And I'm going to tell Keith before I ask you that. Keith said, good show. Got to jump to get on my own show. That's right. So Keith is Ottersberg is on the Riff Nation Network. I don't know if Joni's joining you tonight or not, Keith, but you can find them on Facebook and YouTube under that name. But so where can they find your book? Like you said, whatever you've got coming up, you just mentioned something a few minutes ago. How can they get a hold of you? Everything. I'll stop talking so they can.
Okay.
Tell it.
Well, my website is steveburgesshypnosis.com. steveburgesshypnosis.com. My YouTube channel, Hypno for All, HYPNO, the number 4 ALL. There are 26 free hypnotherapy recordings on that for people to listen to get better from all sorts of issues like anxieties, irritable bowel, etc., etc. It's my way of giving back to the world. It's a way of getting free therapy, because not everybody can afford therapy. And therapy shouldn't be an elitist thing. So it's my way of at least giving free hypnotherapy to people. The 26 hypnotherapy recordings, plus interviews with me and my team members. I have a team of brilliant therapists who I pass clients to when I'm busy. So Hypno for All. There are actually 2 past life regression sessions videoed on there as well. You can watch me at work with one of my team members working with her phobia of deep dark water. And she goes
I'm
back
glad, because I share one from a channel from years ago. Now I know what's on your channel. I can be sharing your channel so people can see what happens.
Okay, thank you. My Facebook is The Power of Past Life Regression. The book is The Adventures of a Hypnotherapist. All good booksellers, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, etc. It's available there. This year now I'm in the process of relocating over to Florida, and the States. I do past life regression group workshops. If people want to just go on my mailing list, then I'll put people on the list and we send out a newsletter. I have a one-man show called The Power of Past Life Regression, which I put on at different venues as well. That's a full evening of me talking about all this weird shit for 2 or 3 hours. And I usually give that for free as well, because I just want people to have a good evening. And I'm also trying to develop a TV show on past life regression. I filmed a pilot episode last year. I'm now trying to get it to TV companies. If any of your viewers and listeners have got any contacts in the TV production world who may be interested in looking at it,
after.
Please let me know. Yeah, please. I've got a great pilot episode, and I think it's a really watchable program about past life regression, and we do a live past life regression in that particular pilot. So,
well, I love that, you guys. I will have Steve back on. It probably won't be to the new year because we're booking into then, but there was so much more to talk about. But in the meantime, I strongly encourage you to go out and get his book. If you are watching, his website is streaming across the bottom as well. Steve Burgess Hypnosis, right? .com. So you guys, next week it's a returning guest. You love her every time she's on. I believe it's Norway. She's in Marcia, she says it Marcia, actually. I'm trying to say it the proper way, Tekau. And she's coming back on. We always have the most in-depth, incredible conversations about mindset, power of positive thinking, spirituality. So she's on next week. And then don't forget to stay tuned. Next, we've got Preston Dennett and Dolly Saffron coming up with the Light Gate. And then Thursday, I'm going to be back with Carrie Lynn Shellhorn on Beneath the Hollow Moon, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I still don't know what we're talking about. We're going to figure it out. We always surprise you guys. Anyways, Steve, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to have you on again.
Real pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Lorilei. Thank you. Lots of love to everybody.
Thank you. And much love and light to everybody. We will see you on Thursday and then next Monday. Hang tight, Steve. Don't go anywhere. Hang on. All right, everybody. Stay tuned for Dolly and Preston. We'll see you in a